Chapter 1, the 999th time sharing a bed with her best friend's brother. Melody Ashton was on top of Julian Kingsley, and they had been at it for nearly an hour. Fine beads of sweat dotted his forehead, but he still couldn't find release. "Maybe, use your hand," she felt for him, suggesting softly, her face flushed. Julian Kingsley gently stroked her hair. "It's all right. I'll take care of it myself. You go take a shower first." Hot water cascaded down. In the enveloping steam, she suddenly remembered she'd forgotten her pajamas. Just as she pushed open the bathroom door, she heard a low gasp from the living room. "Vivian." Melody Ashton froze. Through the half-open door, she saw Julian Kingsley leaning against the sofa, masturbating to a photo of Vivian Holloway. His eyes were closed. His Adam's apple bobbed, his voice hoarse beyond belief. "Vivian, baby." After all the times they'd shared a bed, he could never truly find pleasure with her. Yet now, calling Vivian Holloway's name, looking at Vivian Holloway's picture, he easily found his fleeting happiness. Witnessing this, Melody Ashton felt as if she'd plunged into an icy abyss. The next second, the phone rang abruptly. Julian Kingsley took a moment to compose himself before answering. As soon as the call connected, his friend Lucas Carter's incredulous voice came through. "Julian, are you really going to bid for Vivian Holloway's first night tomorrow? Have you forgotten how she dumped you? When you went bankrupt, she turned around and got with the dean's son for a chance to study abroad. Now that you've made a comeback, she's clinging to you again. That kind of woman?" Julian Kingsley closed his eyes, his voice low. "I know she's a gold digger, selfish, and hypocritical." He paused, then gave a bitter laugh. "But I just love her. All these years, I've been going crazy thinking about her." Lucas Carter's breathing grew heavy. "Then what about Melody Ashton? She's your current girlfriend. What do you take her for?" Julian Kingsley pinched the bridge of his nose. "I've tried, but I can't bring myself to like her. If you've truly loved someone, then everyone else becomes a compromise. Melody is great, but for me, she's always been a compromise." Lucas Carter sighed. I really don't know what kind of spell Vivian Holloway has cast on you. If Melody Ashton finds out how you're treating her and leaves you, you'll regret it. Deepaish. Inus?" A hint of weariness crept into Julian Kingsley's voice. "If she leaves, then she leaves. It's been too many years. I can't bring myself to break up with her. If she initiates it, it would be a kind of liberation for me too." Seeing Julian Kingsley hang up and about to come in, Melody Ashton's face turned deathly pale. She quickly stumbled back into the bathroom. The shower water washed over her trembling body, and she couldn't help but recall the first time she saw Julian Kingsley. It was the opening ceremony of her first year of high school. As student council president, he stood on stage giving a speech. He wore a white shirt, cool and composed, his black trousers encasing long, slender legs. He exuded an innate aristocratic aura. Most devastatingly, his handsome face made every girl in the auditorium gasp the moment he looked up. Melody Ashton stood in the crowd, watching his well-defined fingers lightly touch the microphone, his Adam's apple moving gently as he spoke. In that moment, she thought she could hear her own heart beating. "Hey, mesmerized." Her best friend Nina Kingsley nudged her with an elbow. "That's my brother. Handsome, right?" Later, she learned there was a saying at their prestigious high school. It was excusable not to know the principal, but unforgivable not to know the campus heartthrob, Julian Kingsley. He was the object of every girl's affection, but he always politely and distantly refused all confessions. Over time, everyone assumed he wasn't interested in women. Melody Ashton only dared to steal a few glances at him when she was a guest at Nina's house, until Vivian Holloway transferred to their school. She was like a ball of fire, pursuing Julian Kingsley with passionate persistence. Everyone thought she would be rejected like the other girls, but 3 months later, Julian Kingsley actually agreed to be with her. Melody Ashton would never forget that day. She stood at the corner of the school building, watching Julian Kingsley press Vivian Holloway against the wall, kissing her. His long fingers were buried in her hair, his usually cool eyes filled with a scorching heat. It was a Julian Kingsley she had never seen before. Melody Ashton watched him lose control for Vivian Holloway time and time again. He'd queue all night for her to buy limited edition items, get into fights for her, skip classes to accompany her to concerts, until their junior year of university, when the Kingsley family went bankrupt. Vivian Holloway immediately dumped him and went abroad with the dean's son. Before leaving, she threw out a line. "Julian Kingsley, you can't give me what I want." Such a proud person, he chased Vivian Holloway's car for 2 whole streets. He pleaded repeatedly, she didn't even look back. After that, Julian Kingsley was in a daze every day. Melody Ashton, worried, silently followed him until he discovered her. "Why are you always following me?" Julian Kingsley turned and asked her. She stammered, unable to speak. "You like me," he said, cutting straight to the point. "Then let's be together." After they got together, Melody Ashton learned that Julian Kingsley had only agreed to be with her to escape the pain of his previous relationship. Yet, she still cherished it, obediently treating him well, warming his heart. Later, it seemed he gradually began to love her too. He started remembering her birthdays, began to make her brown sugar tea during her period, and would smile and hold her in his arms during thunderstorms, saying, There, don't be afraid." And after he made his comeback, rebuilding the Kingsley family fortune single-handedly, he doted on her even more. Until 2 weeks ago, when they encountered Vivian Holloway working as a waitress at a club. Vivian Holloway accidentally soiled Melody's dress, and Julian Kingsley sneered, forcing her to pay $5 million in compensation. Vivian Holloway, her eyes red, said, "I don't have money, but my virginity is still intact. I'll auction it off. Once I get the money, I'll compensate you, okay?" Julian Kingsley gripped her chin, his voice icy. "Fine, I want to see the money within 3 days." That night, Melody Ashton lay on their large bed, watching Julian Kingsley spend 2 hours in the study. When he came out, he reeked of smoke. He lay down with his back to her, sleepless the entire night. So, he had already decided back then to bid for Vivian Holloway's first night. So, beneath his thick layer of hatred, was a turbulent surge of longing and love. So, all these years of sharing a bed, he was unable to find release time after time, simply because she wasn't his destination, merely a stopover, his second best option. Melody Ashton looked at her pale reflection in the mirror and suddenly laughed. As she laughed, tears fell. She, Melody Ashton, could love deeply, and she could also let go. If he didn't love her, he could have just said so. She wouldn't cling to him. She turned off the shower, picked up her phone, and sent a message. The next morning, after Julian Kingsley finished breakfast and was about to leave, Melody Ashton also emerged, fully dressed. "Why are you up so early? Don't you want to sleep in a bit?" Melody Ashton lowered her eyes. "I have something to do today." Julian Kingsley smiled gently. "I'll drive you." In the car, just as he asked her where she was going, his phone rang. His assistant's voice came through the receiver. "Mr. Kingsley, Miss Holloway's auction starts tonight. Will you be attending personally?" Julian Kingsley's eyes darkened. "Yes." After a pause, he added, "I'm heading over now." Hanging up, he looked at Melody Ashton, about to make an excuse, but she had already pursed her lips. He was so afraid someone else would win the bid for Vivian Holloway's first night. She spoke before he could. "If you have something to do, just go. I'll go by myself." Julian Kingsley didn't think much of it, eager to leave. "All right, Melody, be safe." Melody Ashton didn't respond. After getting out of the car, she hailed another cab and went to the cafe where she had arranged to meet her best friend, Nina Kingsley. As soon as she entered, Nina Kingsley rushed over, grabbing her hands, her eyes red. "Melody, were you serious about the message you sent yesterday? Are you really going to marry into the Davenport family for me?" Chapter 2, Melody Ashton nodded. "Yes. No way the Davenports are a powerful family, but that heir, Stephen Davenport, has always been abroad. Everyone in our circle says he's temperamental and disfigured. If this marriage hadn't been set in stone by grandfather before he died, I would have. Besides, don't you like my brother? Why would you suddenly offer to marry in my place?" She suddenly paused, staring at Melody Ashton's pale face. "Did my brother bully you? Is it because of Vivian Holloway again? I'm going to confront him for you right now." Melody Ashton quickly grasped Nina Kingsley's hand. "Nina, Julian Kingsley and I are over. I don't like him anymore, and I don't want anything to do with him in the future. I know you've been planning to run away and elope, and you were supposed to leave today but were hesitating." Melody Ashton took a plane ticket from her bag and pressed it into Nina Kingsley's hand. "Go, Leo is waiting for you at the airport. The flight is at 10. You can still make it if you hurry." Nina Kingsley's tears welled up instantly. "Then what about you?" "The wedding is in half a month. I'll marry him in your place." Melody Ashton gently wiped away her tears. "Between us, one of us has to be happy." Nina Kingsley's lips trembled. Finally, she hugged her tightly. "Melody, I'll owe you for the rest of my life." Nina Kingsley left. Melody Ashton stood before the huge floor-to-ceiling windows of the airport, watching Nina Kingsley's flight take off. Sunlight streamed through the glass onto her pale face. She suddenly remembered the day Julian Kingsley had said he wanted to be with her. He had stood on the library steps, also backlit like this, extending his hand to her. How foolish she had been then, thinking the light was truly shining on her. She forced a desolate smile, left the airport, and headed straight for the most expensive bridal shop in the city. A sales assistant greeted her warmly. "Miss, what kind of wedding dress are you looking for?" Melody Ashton's gaze swept over the magnificent white gowns, finally settling on a simple satin mermaid dress. "This one, wrap it up for me." The assistant was taken aback. "Aren't you going to try it on?" "No need," she shook her head. "It's suitable." After all, this wedding was just a transaction. Mr. Davenport, SR, was gravely ill and anxious to see his grandson settled. However, the Davenport heir, Stephen Davenport, was rumored to be temperamental and disfigured, living abroad year-round, causing all the prominent socialites to steer clear of him. With no one willing to marry him, the Davenport family remembered the marriage contract with the Kingsley family. Now, if she married in Nina Kingsley's place, the Davenports wouldn't refuse. After all, they just needed a bride. Who the bride was didn't really matter. Back home, Melody Ashton placed the wedding dress in her suitcase and began to pack her other belongings. She pulled out a thick stack of photos from a drawer, all memories of her and Julian Kingsley. A candid shot of his profile from high school, the first photo they took together in university, one she only got by hugging everyone else first, so she could hug him, a picture of her radiant smile when he first took her to the seaside after they got together. She tore them up, one by one, and threw them into the trash. She then found the gifts he'd given her. Limited edition bags, custom-made necklaces, the ceramic mug he'd made by hand, all thrown away. Finally, she picked up her phone and deleted all the notes about his likes, dislikes, and preferences. Just as she was about to put her phone down, someone called. It was the club manager. "Miss Ashton, you left a silk scarf at our club last time. Would it be convenient for you to come and pick it up?" Melody Ashton checked the time. "All right, I'll head over now." The club was brightly lit, much livelier than usual. As soon as Melody Ashton entered, she heard a clamor. "Mr. Kingsley just outbid everyone. Vivian Holloway's first night is his." Her body stiffened, and she snapped her head up. In front of the glass window of the second-floor VIP booth, Julian Kingsley stood tall and elegant, a black card held between his slender fingers, casually tossed onto the auction stage. And Vivian Holloway, wearing a white dress, was led onto the stage by bodyguards, her eyes red, looking pitiful and helpless. Her body trembled slightly. Only then did she remember that Vivian Holloway was auctioning her virginity at the club tonight. Murmurs filled the room. "Doesn't Mr. Kingsley have a girlfriend? Why is he bidding for his ex-girlfriend's first night? What do you know? When Vivian Holloway dumped him back then, he nearly went mad. So, is he doing this for revenge, or is it a rekindled flame? Look at the way he looks at Vivian Holloway. Does that look like hate? It's clearly love, deep love. Then what about Mr. Kingsley's current girlfriend? After all these years together, Mr. Kingsley still hasn't fallen in love with her. It's true what they say, the moment an ex cries, the current one always loses." Chapter 3, the flood of discussion washed over her. Even though she had long known how much Julian Kingsley loved Vivian Holloway, hearing all this now still left her mind blank, her heart feeling as if a piece had been gouged out, with wind whistling through the void. By the time she came to her senses, she found herself following Julian Kingsley. She watched Julian Kingsley lead Vivian Holloway into the penthouse suite. Perhaps he was too eager, as the door wasn't fully closed, and the sounds from inside carried clearly, "Julian Kingsley," Vivian Holloway cried, questioning him. "Don't you hate me? Didn't you demand $5 million from me just for dirtying your girlfriend's dress? Why did you bid for my first night? Do you still love me? You still love me, don't you?" Julian Kingsley sneered. "Love you?" He grabbed her wrist, his voice low and fierce. "Vivian Holloway, you really dare to think that? I bid for you, 1, to torture you, and 2, your first night should have been mine in the first place. Do you need me to remind you how you seduced me back then?" Every word he spoke was filled with hate, yet when he kissed her, it was all love. Melody Ashton stood outside the door, watching him press Vivian Holloway onto the bed, tearing her dress, his movements urgent. Clothes were stripped away, breaths intertwined. The moment he finally possessed her, a tear slid from the corner of Julian Kingsley's eye, landing on Vivian Holloway's collarbone. "Julian Kingsley, you're crying?" Vivian Holloway froze. He held her waist tightly, his voice hoarse. "Shut up." Melody Ashton trembled all over, her nails digging deep into her palms, yet she felt no pain. She watched them entangled late into the night, watched him take her again and again, watched Vivian Holloway pass out from exhaustion, watched Julian Kingsley, after she fell asleep, hold her in his arms, tenderly kissing her forehead, calling her name over and over. In that instant, Melody Ashton finally broke down. Dazed, she walked out of the club, her vision blurring. Suddenly, glaring headlights shone on her. Bang! Unable to dodge in time, she was knocked to the ground by a small car. Excruciating pain instantly engulfed her body. Dimly, she heard someone exclaim in shock, someone calling for an ambulance. When she woke up again, she was in the hospital. "Thank heavens, you're finally awake. Miss, you need surgery immediately. Please contact your family to sign the consent form." Several nurses stood before her, anxiously holding a surgical consent form. Melody Ashton's consciousness was muddled. Subconsciously, she opened her phone's contact list and dialed the pinned contact. Only when the call connected did she realize it was Julian Kingsley. She was about to hang up, but the call had already gone through. Instead, Vivian Holloway's broken voice came through. "Julian Kingsley, your girlfriend is calling. It's so late. It must be something urgent. You should go see her. Let me go. I can't take it anymore." The next second, Julian Kingsley's cold voice rang out. "Ignore it. Vivian Holloway, I've been with you all night and tonight isn't over. You dare try to run?" Then, the sound of intimate, wet kisses came from the other end. The call disconnected. The nurse looked at her awkwardly. "Well, do you have any other family members?" Melody Ashton closed her eyes, trembling. As tears streamed down her face, her heart felt as if it had been brutally torn open, cold wind rushing in, freezing her organs until they ached. "I'll sign it myself. Whatever happens, I'll take responsibility." With that, she tremblingly picked up the pen and, stroke by stroke, signed her name. Blood from her fingertips stained the consent form red. As the last stroke fell, she completely lost consciousness. Chapter 4. When Melody Ashton woke up, the smell of disinfectant made her frown. Opening her eyes, she saw Julian Kingsley sitting by her bed, his suit jacket casually draped over the back of the chair, his shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing well-defined forearms. Melody, seeing her awake, he immediately leaned over, his warm palm resting on her forehead. "Does it still hurt?" Melody Ashton instinctively turned her head away. Julian Kingsley's hand froze in mid-air, his Adam's apple bobbed. "I'm sorry," his voice was low and hoarse. "Something important came up last night. I didn't get your call. I didn't know you had a car accident. Forgive me, okay?" Something important. Was it the important business of sleeping with Vivian Holloway? Melody Ashton remembered the intimate gasps from the other end of the call. A smile tugged at her lips, but tears fell onto the white bedsheet. Julian Kingsley thought she was in pain and quickly pressed the call bell for a doctor. After an examination, the attending physician said, "The surgery and sutures were successful, but she needs to rest quietly for 2 weeks." He paused, then glanced meaningfully at Julian Kingsley. "It would be best if someone could provide close care." Julian Kingsley nodded. "I'll stay with her." He wasn't lying. For the following days, he barely left her side. He booked the entire VIP floor, just so she could recuperate in peace. When she wanted to get some fresh air in the garden, he would carry her downstairs, extremely carefully, afraid she might bump into something. When she said in the middle of the night that she craved porridge from the West End, he drove to buy it without a second thought. The porridge was still hot when he returned. In the past, Melody Ashton would have been moved to tears. But now, her entire heart was empty. If she hadn't personally witnessed how he loved Vivian Holloway, she might have almost believed him. On the day of her discharge, Julian Kingsley fastened her seatbelt and said softly, "Melody, I've prepared a surprise for you." Before she could respond, his phone suddenly rang. "Julian, class reunion tonight, are you coming?" On the other end, an old classmate teased, "Never mind, I shouldn't even ask, you're definitely not coming. It's probably for the best you don't come. After all, Vivian Holloway is coming too." I really don't know how she has the nerve who didn't know back then that she dumped you for a study abroad spot. All our classmates despise her for being such a gold digger, yet she still insists on showing up. Julian Kingsley's fingers paused. He suddenly said, "I'm going." The person on the other end was stunned. "What, you're going?" "Yeah." He glanced at Melody Ashton, his tone natural. "I'll bring my girlfriend. She's been in the hospital recently, so it'll be good for her to get out and relax." The old classmate immediately laughed. Great, this will be perfect to annoy Vivian Holloway and show her what she's lost." After hanging up, Julian Kingsley looked at Melody Ashton and explained gently, "I'm taking you out to relax." Melody Ashton lowered her eyes, her fingertips trembling slightly. Relax? He had just said he was going to show her a surprise. Now there was no mention of the surprise, and relaxing was just an excuse. He just wanted to see Vivian Holloway, but she didn't expose him, merely closing her eyes tiredly. The class reunion was held at a private club. The private room was dimly lit, with glasses clinking. When Julian Kingsley appeared with Melody Ashton on his arm, the whole place instantly erupted. Damn, Julian Kingsley really came. And he brought his girlfriend. Isn't that the little junior who used to always follow him around with water bottles? Someone deliberately said loudly. What a well-matched couple. She looks so sweet and obedient, much better than certain gold-digging exes. In a corner, Vivian Holloway's face was pale, her fingers trembling slightly as she clutched her wine glass. But Julian Kingsley acted as if he hadn't seen her, being extremely attentive to Melody Ashton the entire time. As soon as she sat down, he placed a cushion behind her back. When she took a sip of wine, he immediately handed her warm water. "Your injury hasn't healed yet, drink less alcohol." Someone teased, "Mr. Kingsley pampers his girlfriend so much, he must love her a lot." Julian Kingsley smiled without answering, just gently ruffling Melody Ashton's hair. But Melody Ashton saw clearly. His gaze kept drifting towards Vivian Holloway. She finally couldn't sit still any longer and got up to go to the restroom. But just as she came out, Vivian Holloway blocked her path. "You saw everything at the hotel entrance yesterday, didn't you?" Vivian Holloway smiled smugly. "How did it feel to watch Julian sleep with me? Melody Ashton, you really have a lot of tolerance." Melody Ashton's fingers dug into her palm, but her face remained calm. "I felt nothing. Excuse me." "Felt nothing. Why are you pretending to be so virtuous?" Vivian Holloway suddenly grabbed her wrist. "Melody Ashton, let me tell you, if I hadn't made the wrong choice back then, Julian would have been mine. And you're just a thief who took advantage of the situation. To be honest, I came back this time to win him back." She leaned closer, her red lips curling. "Do you know how much he used to love me? In high school, I casually mentioned wanting cake from the North End, and he skipped class and queued for 3 hours. In university, when I had period pains, he knelt and rubbed my stomach all night. Even now," she lowered her voice, gloating, "he says he hates me, but last night he took me again and again, until dawn he wouldn't stop. He loves me this much. How can you win?" Melody Ashton's heart trembled slightly. She slowly looked up at the person before her. Previously, she had only silently loved Julian Kingsley and silently watched how much he loved Vivian Holloway, never confronting Vivian Holloway directly. So, even when Vivian dumped Julian for money, Melody thought perhaps Vivian had her own difficulties. Otherwise, why would Julian be so obsessed with her? But now, Melody Ashton finally understood Vivian Holloway was just this kind of person. Selfish, vain, and utterly without principles. Yet, Julian Kingsley was madly in love with her. "Then I wish you success." With that, Melody Ashton shook off her hand and walked away without looking back. Back in the private room, everyone was excitedly playing, "I Have, You Haven't." Seeing Melody Ashton return, they quickly pulled her in to join. Afraid she wouldn't understand, they even explained the rules. All participants hold up 5 fingers. They take turns saying something they have done. If others haven't done it, they put down a finger. The first person to put down all 5 fingers loses. Vivian Holloway had also followed her in. Hearing about the game, she eagerly tried to join, but no one paid her any attention. "Melody, the game's starting, you go first." Melody Ashton raised her fingers. Remembering Vivian Holloway's provocation just now, she suddenly smiled. She didn't need to provoke anyone. Because Julian Kingsley, she didn't want him anymore. She said softly, "I'm getting married soon. If you're not, put down a finger." Chapter 5, that sentence hit the room like a bombshell. It fell so silent that even breathing could be heard clearly. Everyone's gaze focused on Melody Ashton, then slowly shifted to Julian Kingsley. A few seconds later, screams erupted in the room. "Damn, Julian, you've already proposed. Then you shouldn't call her girlfriend, you should call her fiancé." No, it should be wife, people laughed and teased, except for Vivian Holloway in the corner, who clutched her bag tightly, her eyes red. Julian Kingsley's gaze swept over her, a flicker of darkness in his eyes. He closed his eyes, put down a finger, and said in a low voice, "I don't have such plans for now." His voice was soft, yet it felt like a slap across Melody Ashton's face. Because in everyone's eyes, they were a couple. She said she was getting married, but he said he wasn't. Wasn't this, in front of everyone, a direct repudiation of her, saying he didn't want to marry her? The others clearly sensed something was amiss and awkwardly tried to smooth things over. "What's going on with you two? Don't you discuss marriage?" Melody Ashton opened her mouth, about to explain Julian Kingsley and I are not a couple. "I am getting married, but not to him." But before the words could escape, a sharp crack suddenly sounded from above. "Watch out," someone screamed. Melody Ashton looked up and saw a huge crystal chandelier swaying precariously, about to crash down towards her, and Vivian Holloway in a flash. Julian Kingsley lunged forward. He pulled Vivian Holloway into his arms, shielding her tightly. And Melody Ashton was hit hard by the chandelier bang. Excruciating pain swept through her body. Glass shards cut her skin, and blood instantly soaked her sleeves. Chaos erupted around her. Someone was frantically shouting her name, someone was clumsily trying to move the chandelier, and Julian Kingsley, only after confirming Vivian Holloway was safe, remembered her. He hurried over, his voice tinged with apology. "Melody, I'm sorry, I pulled the wrong person." Melody Ashton looked into his eyes, and suddenly her eyes reddened with a tearful smile. Pulled the wrong person? She and Vivian Holloway, their hair, clothes, height, nothing was similar. How could he possibly mistake them? It was simply because, in a life or death moment, his instinct would always choose Vivian Holloway. "It's okay, it doesn't hurt." Perhaps because she had been hurt too many times, she truly couldn't feel the pain anymore. But Julian Kingsley didn't believe her and urgently wanted to take her to the hospital. She still shook her head. "It's not serious, I can just go home and bandage it myself. You guys have fun." She turned to leave but was scooped up into his arms. "You're hurt like this, how could I possibly let you go back alone?" His tone was firm, leaving no room for refusal. "I'll take you in the car," Julian Kingsley apologized again. "Melody, I really mistook you. I won't let you get hurt again. And about the marriage, you're still young, there's no rush." Melody Ashton heard the flaws in his explanation, but said nothing, just gazing out the window, quietly watching the raindrops begin to splatter against the glass. Her phone rang abruptly. It was Vivian Holloway calling him. "Julian, did you get Miss Ashton home? Is she okay?" "I'm calling to ask you. Someone is blocking the club entrance asking for my contact information. Do you think I should give it to them?" At these words, Julian Kingsley's expression changed dramatically. His eyes darkened, and he practically gritted his teeth. "You dare give it to them?" After hanging up, he calmed his icy demeanor and looked at Melody Ashton again. "Melody, I have something urgent. Can you go home first, okay?" He didn't wait for her answer, just thrust an umbrella into her hand. "It's raining outside, be careful not to catch a cold." With that, he drove off in a hurry. Melody Ashton stood there, suddenly remembering what he had just said. "You're hurt like this, how could I possibly let you go back alone?" She suddenly let out a laugh. She didn't know if she was laughing at herself or at Julian Kingsley. Chapter 6, the rain fell harder and harder. Melody Ashton stood by the roadside holding an umbrella, but the wind was too strong, and the umbrella's ribs soon snapped. Rain poured down on her. She was soaked to the bone and couldn't get a taxi, so she could only walk home. The icy rainwater seeped into her wounds, a biting pain. She walked for a long time, so long that her legs grew numb, so long that her vision blurred. When she finally reached home, she couldn't hold on any longer. Her vision went black, and she collapsed heavily onto the floor. Melody Ashton was awakened by the chill of the floor. As she propped herself up, she realized she was still lying on the cold floor. A tearing pain came from the wound on her shoulder. The grandfather clock in the hallway showed 4 a.m. Julian Kingsley's slippers were still neatly placed in the shoe cabinet. He hadn't come home all night. She struggled to her feet, swallowed 2 fever-reducing pills, and stumbled back to bed. She had a very long dream. In the dream, 17-year-old her secretly followed Julian Kingsley, watching his upright figure, her heart pounding like a drum. How she wished she could rush over, grab that version of herself whose eyes were full of light, and tell her, "Don't like him anymore. It won't end well." When she woke up, the house was still empty. She picked up her phone to check the time, but unintentionally scrolled through Vivian Holloway's social media feed. "Someone has locked me in the room, saying I'm flirting around and won't let me out, and even wants to watch over me personally. What do you all think his feelings are for me?" The accompanying picture showed a well-defined hand. That hand had once gently held her, calling her sweetheart. It had also held her hand all night when she had a fever. But now, it belonged to Vivian Holloway. For the next few days, she stayed indoors, continuing to pack the luggage she hadn't finished organizing. When Julian Kingsley returned and saw the suitcases strewn across the floor, he couldn't help but frown. "What are you doing?" she lied. "The seasons are changing. I'm worried they'll get damp, so I took them out to organize." Although something was clearly amiss, he didn't press further, merely apologizing for leaving her behind last time and then taking her to see a movie. "The movie you've always wanted to see, Melody. Consider it my apology." His tone was gentle, allowing no refusal. In the cinema, just as they sat down, Melody Ashton saw Vivian Holloway. She was sitting in the front row with a strange man, their posture intimate. Julian Kingsley's face instantly darkened. Throughout the entire movie, his gaze never left Vivian Holloway. Melody Ashton suddenly remembered that when someone had asked for her contact information before, Julian Kingsley had just smiled and ruffled her hair. "My little girl is so popular, huh?" So, when you truly liked someone, even jealousy could drive you mad. Halfway through the movie, she had completely lost interest. Just as she was about to make an excuse to leave, a chaotic noise came from outside. Then, the fire alarm blared, "Fire, run," in an instant. The crowd descended into chaos. When thick smoke billowed in from the vents, Julian Kingsley quickly wrapped Melody Ashton in his suit jacket and shielded her as they rushed out. But as soon as they reached a safe area, he started looking around for something. Melody Ashton followed his gaze and realized that the man who was with Vivian Holloway had come out alone. But Vivian Holloway hadn't. Before she could react, Julian Kingsley abandoned her and rushed over. "Where's Vivian Holloway?" Julian Kingsley grabbed the man's collar, roaring, "Why didn't you bring her out?" The man didn't know who Julian Kingsley was, but was so frightened by his aura that he instantly stammered. Who cares about her? We're just ordinary online friends." In a life or death situation like this, I barely had time to escape myself. Julian Kingsley punched him hard. Then, without a word, rushed into the firefighters who had arrived tried desperately to stop him. "Sir, don't go in, we will carry out the rescue. The fire is too big right now, you'll die if you go in. It'll be too late if we wait." His eyes were bloodshot. He pushed aside those tried to stop him, and plunged into the inferno without hesitation from beginning to end. He had forgotten that his official girlfriend was right there. Chapter 7. Melody Ashton stood there, chilled to the bone, watching him disappear into the thick smoke. 10 minutes later, a figure stumbled out of the smoke. Julian Kingsley was carrying an unconscious Vivian Holloway, the shirt on his back burned to ashes, his exposed skin a bloody mess. Vivian Holloway, however, was on his back, and apart from some ash on her dress hem, not a single hair was out of place. "Ambulance!" he roared, collapsing to his knees, yet still carefully protecting the person in his arms. Only after seeing her placed on a stretcher did his vision go black and he fainted completely. Melody Ashton's eyes reddened. She couldn't help but press her hand to her heart. It didn't hurt anymore. That was good. The wound from where she had forcibly carved Julian Kingsley out of her heart, it seemed, was almost healed. In the hospital, Melody Ashton kept vigil all night. But when Julian Kingsley woke up, his first words were, "Vivian." "How is she?" Melody Ashton said calmly. "She's fine. She left after her wounds were treated." He breathed a sigh of relief, then remembered to explain, "Melody, I only saved her because we knew each other after all. I didn't want her to die. I understand." Julian Kingsley was taken aback. He ruffled her hair, thinking she believed him. But what Melody Ashton understood was how much he loved Vivian Holloway, loved her enough to risk his own life. For the next few days, Julian Kingsley stayed in the hospital, his gaze often drifting towards the door, as if waiting for someone. Melody Ashton knew he was waiting for Vivian Holloway, but Vivian Holloway wouldn't come. She understood the game of playing hard to get all too well. Unable to see the person he longed for, Julian Kingsley was soon discharged from the hospital. After his discharge, there were only 2 days left until Melody Ashton's wedding day. In the car, just as Melody Ashton bought a plane ticket on her phone, Julian Kingsley suddenly mentioned that her birthday was coming up and he wanted to throw a birthday party for her. "Melody, who do you want to invite? You don't have many friends, just my sister is your closest, but I don't know where she's run off to lately. But she's about to marry into the Davenport family, so I don't want to restrict her too much. Since she's not around, how about inviting those people from the last class reunion? You're familiar with them too." Those people from the class reunion also included Vivian Holloway. Melody Ashton closed her eyes tiredly. He was beating around the bush, but he just wanted to invite Vivian Holloway. "Arrange it as you like." In the end, the birthday party was set to be held on a cruise ship, extravagantly luxurious. Julian Kingsley gave her a priceless diamond necklace. The guests were all envious, saying he spoiled his wife rotten. Only Melody Ashton saw his gaze constantly following the figure in a white dress on the deck. The next second, Vivian Holloway walked over, holding a glass of red wine. "Miss Ashton, happy birthday." Melody Ashton clearly felt Julian Kingsley's arm around her stiffen for a moment. "Thank you," she replied calmly. Vivian Holloway's gaze lingered on the necklace around her neck for a moment, then she suddenly, accidentally, stumbled. The scarlet wine spilled all over Melody Ashton's gown. I'm sorry," Vivian Holloway fumbled for a tissue in panic. "I didn't do it on purpose." Julian Kingsley frowned. "What on earth are you doing?" His tone was seemingly reproachful, yet he didn't spare a single glance for his girlfriend whose dress was soiled. Even when Melody Ashton was helped away to change her clothes, he seemed oblivious. Looking at Julian Kingsley, who was still standing beside Vivian Holloway, seemingly arguing with her but actually wanting to look at her more, Melody Ashton smiled, a smile of her own desolation. Melody Ashton was led by the waiter to a corridor in the ship's cabin. Just as she pushed open the door to the changing room, about to enter, a rough, large hand suddenly clamped over her mouth from behind. MMPH. She was violently dragged into a storage room. The strong stench of sweat assaulted her nostrils. A man in ragged clothes pressed her against the wall, his murky eyes glinting with lecherous light. "Miss Holloway was right, you really are a beauty," he tore at her collar. "She paid me to sleep with you, said she wants to ruin your reputation, hee. Miss Holloway, Vivian Holloway?" Her mind buzzed. She never imagined Vivian Holloway could be so vicious as to arrange for a beggar to assault her. Chapter 8. Fear washed over Melody Ashton like a tide. She struggled desperately, her nails scratching bloody marks on the man's face. "Bitch!" A harsh slap landed on her face, her ears ringing. The man took the opportunity to tear open her shoulder strap, his filthy hand reaching under her skirt. Bang! She grabbed a fire extinguisher and smashed it on his head while the assailant yelped in pain and loosened his grip. She stumbled out of the door. When Melody Ashton, battered and bruised, returned to the deck, the guests were still chatting and laughing. Julian Kingsley was standing with Vivian Holloway by the champagne tower. He must have said something, because Vivian Holloway covered her lips and giggled, her eyes sparkling. Slap! A resounding slap cut through all the noise. Vivian Holloway staggered back, clutching her face, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You, Melody," Julian Kingsley grabbed Melody Ashton's wrist. "What are you doing?" She shook off his hand, her voice trembling. "She hired a thug to assault me." The entire crowd was in an uproar. Vivian Holloway's tears fell instantly. "I didn't miss. Ashton, I know you hate me, but how could you slander me like this?" Click. Melody Ashton played the recording she had just made on her phone. "Miss Holloway sent me," she said. "She wants to ruin your reputation." The thug's sinister laugh was clearly audible in the recording. Julian Kingsley's face instantly turned as black as ink. "Vivian Holloway, I thought you were just a gold digger. I never expected you to be so malicious. How did Melody offend you? Today is her birthday. Inviting you here was already a sign of her kindness, and you actually did something like this?" Faced with Julian Kingsley's fury, Vivian Holloway finally dropped her act. She suddenly burst out laughing. "Yes, I did it. I'm malicious, I'm despicable, but it's all because I love you, Julian Kingsley. I wanted her to be assaulted so she would leave you. You should be mine. You used to love me so much. You dare to speak of love. It's disgusting. Julian Kingsley violently pushed her away. I stopped loving you the moment you left me. The one I love now is Melody. Apologize to her immediately. Apologize. I won't. I'd rather die than apologize. Then go die, Julian Kingsley roared. Hearing this, Vivian Holloway froze. A moment later, her eyes turned completely red. She stared at him fixedly, then, before anyone could react, she ran out. The sea breeze billowed her white dress like a dying butterfly. Julian Kingsley, as you wish. Vivian Holloway gave a desolate smile, turned, and leaped into the dark sea. Vivian Holloway. Julian Kingsley's roar tore through the night sky. The next second, he too jumped in without hesitation when Julian Kingsley climbed onto the yacht, holding an unconscious Vivian Holloway. Everyone on board crowded around. Quick, ambulance! Mr. Kingsley is injured in the chaos. No one paid any more attention to Melody Ashton, the birthday girl. She was knocked to the ground by the rushing crowd, her palms scraped raw. And when Julian Kingsley ran past her, carrying Vivian Holloway, he didn't even glance at her. The sea breeze blew her damp hair from her forehead. Melody Ashton felt warm blood, unsure if it was from her earlier struggle or a new wound. She looked towards the direction the ambulance had gone and suddenly smiled. As she smiled, tears streamed down. Julian Kingsley, you say you don't love Vivian Holloway, you love Melody Ashton. Who would believe that? Chapter 9, Melody Ashton went to the police station alone. She handed the recording to the police officers, calmly gave her statement, and accused Vivian Holloway of inciting others to commit sexual assault. The officer looked at her disheveled hair and the bruises on her arm with sympathy in his eyes. We will handle this according to the law. Thank you. She returned home, poured herself a glass of hot water, and swallowed 2 painkillers. Her phone kept buzzing with notifications, all news about Julian Kingsley rushing into the hospital with Vivian Holloway in his arms. In the photos, his eyes were filled with anxiety, his arms tightly around her, as if she were a fragile treasure. She turned off her phone, went into the bathroom, and slowly washed away the lingering bloodstains and her disheveled state. She wouldn't hurt for him anymore. The next morning, just as Melody Ashton finished packing her last suitcase and was about to leave for the airport, the main door was suddenly pushed open. Julian Kingsley walked in, his suit jacket draped over his arm, his tie loosened, his eyes showing the fatigue of a sleepless night. She froze for a moment. Why was he back? Shouldn't he be at the hospital with Vivian Holloway? Melody, his voice was hoarse. Yesterday's incident, you reported it? Melody Ashton understood instantly. So he had come back for Vivian Holloway. She nodded. If I hadn't run fast, I might have been assaulted by now. People who do wrong must take responsibility, right? Julian Kingsley frowned slightly, remaining silent for a few seconds before saying, I understand, but she just jumped into the sea. Her body is still very weak. So, Melody Ashton interrupted softly. Because she jumped into the sea, I should let her off. She stared into his eyes. Didn't you say you hated her? Then you should want her to be punished even more. Julian Kingsley froze, a complex emotion flickering in his eyes. Yes, I do hate her. His voice was slightly hoarse. But you love her more. Melody Ashton silently completed his sentence in her mind. Julian Kingsley took a deep breath and suddenly changed his tone. Drop the case. Don't you want to get married? He looked at her, his voice softening. After you drop the case, we'll get married, okay? Melody Ashton's eyes suddenly burned. He clearly wanted to break up with her so badly. But now, for Vivian Holloway, he even brought up marriage. Just as she was about to tell him she was already going to marry someone else, Julian Kingsley's phone suddenly rang. A nurse's anxious voice came from the receiver. Mr. Kingsley, Miss Holloway is awake. She's smashing things again because she can't see you. She's very unstable. Julian Kingsley's brow furrowed tightly. He hastily hung up, grabbed his jacket, and was about to leave. This document was collected from the internet. Please delete it within 24 hours. For resource retrieval, add WeChat. Jai0701I, let's leave it at that. I have things to do these few days, he said without looking back. We'll discuss the wedding when I get back. With that, he pushed open the door and left without even a second glance at her. Melody Ashton stood there, watching his back disappear through the doorway. Was he so sure that she loved him enough to drop the case without hesitation if he just proposed marriage? Was he so sure that she would always be there waiting for him? She slowly looked around the house that once held all her expectations, her gaze falling on the coffee table. The ceramic mug Julian Kingsley had given her was still there, with Melody's exclusive engraved on the bottom. She walked over, placed the mug in the trash can, then took a sticky note from her bag and wrote a line: Julian Kingsley, as you wished, let's break up. You're free. The pen paused, and she added another sentence: wishing you and Vivian Holloway 100 years of happiness. After writing, she stuck the note on the refrigerator, dragged her suitcase, and left without looking back. On the way to the airport, her phone rang again. It was from the police station. Miss Ashton, Mr. Kingsley called earlier, saying you intended to drop the case. Is that true? Melody Ashton looked at the rapidly receding scenery outside the window and said softly, No, I'm not dropping the case. Hanging up, she turned off her phone. The moment the plane took off, she finally closed her eyes and let out a long sigh of relief. Julian Kingsley, this time, I really don't want you anymore. Chapter 10. As soon as Melody Ashton landed, she saw a man who looked like a butler waiting outside. After confirming his identity with a photo, she walked over without hesitation. Miss Ashton. The butler recognized her. Melody Ashton nodded. I'm the person you're here to pick up. Take me to see Stephen Davenport. Although the Davenport butler was surprised, he still led her to the car. In the villa in America, Stephen Davenport looked at the newcomer, not particularly surprised. After asking about Melody Ashton's preferences, he instructed the Davenport servants to brew a cup of herbal tea. Melody Ashton looked at Stephen Davenport in his wheelchair, her mind racing. This person seemed very gentle, not at all as unapproachable as the rumors suggested. He wore a mask, so she couldn't see his face clearly, but so what if he was disfigured? After her experience with Julian Kingsley, she understood that appearance was insignificant compared to character. Seeing her staring at him, Stephen Davenport thought she wanted to ask about his wheelchair and explained first. It was just an incident a while ago. There's nothing wrong with my legs. Ah, okay. Melody Ashton realized he had misunderstood and quickly waved her hand. That's not what I meant. This person was like he came with an instruction manual. Stephen Davenport didn't mind. He got straight to the point. Are you sure you want to marry me in Nina Kingsley's place? Melody Ashton nodded. Actually, we both know this marriage is just a transaction. Although she couldn't see his expression, Melody Ashton felt as if she could sense his scrutinizing gaze from behind the mask. So I won't make things difficult for you. If that day ever comes, I will terminate the marriage contract and also give you a sum of compensation. Melody Ashton remained silent. She knew what Stephen Davenport meant by that day. Of course, all this depends on your wishes. If you regret it, I don't regret it. I am willing to marry you, Melody Ashton answered seriously. Stephen Davenport was stunned for a moment. He didn't say anything further, just nodded and replied, all right. Her phone vibrated. It was a spam message. Melody Ashton deleted it. It had been a week since she arrived in America, and there hadn't been a single message from Julian Kingsley. She knew what that meant. She had thrown away everything in her house that was related to her and even left him a note. If Julian Kingsley had seen the note, it would have been impossible for him not to contact her. But he hadn't. This could only mean that Julian Kingsley hadn't been home all week. He had been at the hospital taking care of Vivian Holloway. Julian Kingsley, do you like Vivian Holloway that much? It doesn't matter anymore. Melody Ashton gave a bitter smile inwardly. It doesn't matter. Anyway, she and Julian Kingsley would never have anything to do with each other again. When Stephen Davenport came over, he saw Melody Ashton sitting by the window, looking down at her phone, seemingly pondering something. He knocked on the door, and she looked up, her image overlapping with the small figure in his memory. I had someone design a few wedding dresses for you. See if there's anything you like. Stephen Davenport paused. I also looked at the one you brought. I had the designer alter it a bit. What do you think? Melody Ashton didn't care about the wedding details, but Stephen Davenport insisted on organizing it properly. This is an important event in your life, after all. It must be taken seriously, Stephen Davenport explained. Will you still be wearing this mask on the wedding day? Melody Ashton mused. Actually, Stephen Davenport spent most of his time at the company. This villa was usually occupied only by Melody Ashton and the butler. She saw him very infrequently, but whenever she did, he always wore a mask. She thought about the wedding day. If Stephen Davenport still wore this mask, a strange sense of absurdity washed over her, and Melody Ashton couldn't help but chuckle. Stephen Davenport looked at her, guessing what she was thinking. He was about to reach up and take off his mask, but Melody Ashton stopped him. "It's okay," Melody Ashton reassured him. "Even if you wear the mask that day, it doesn't matter. Anyway, no one would dare to gossip about you." It was understandable for a man of his age to be concerned about his appearance. Melody Ashton expressed her understanding generously. She had no desire to expose someone's scars, so if Stephen Davenport was unwilling, she wouldn't pry into his privacy. However, Stephen Davenport took her hand and removed his own mask. A long, flesh-colored scar extended from behind his ear to his chin. "You!" Melody Ashton's surprise was too obvious. Stephen Davenport still smiled politely. "Some things did happen before, but thankfully, it's all in the past." Melody Ashton had actually heard a little about the some things Stephen Davenport mentioned. It was when the Davenport family had just arrived in America. His grandfather started from scratch, building a foothold in the local area through credit and profit sharing. However, local competitors, disliking their way of doing business, colluded with a group of thugs to kidnap Stephen Davenport, who was still in high school, to threaten his grandfather into withdrawing from the market. However, after receiving the guarantee of withdrawal, the thugs reneged at the last minute and doused the abandoned garage with gasoline. Whenever Nina Kingsley mentioned this, she would sigh heavily. "Such a fine person, burned just like that. I heard when he was rescued, he was charred black all over. They fought to save him for 3 days before he was barely out of danger. If you're scared, you can cancel the engagement." Melody Ashton quickly explained, "I'm not scared. I initially thought, the rumors outside, I thought your whole face was burned to charcoal, so I was just shocked that it wasn't what I imagined. It's not because I'm afraid of your face." "Charcoal?" Stephen Davenport repeated her word and chuckled. "The rumors are a bit exaggerated. They did set it on fire back then." Stephen Davenport saw what Melody Ashton wanted to ask. "It's just that when they left, they forgot to take their knife. I managed to reach it, cut the ropes, and escaped through another route." She hadn't expected such a version of the story. Yet, Stephen Davenport recounted such a perilous event so casually that Melody Ashton felt a bit uneasy. Actually, Stephen Davenport had well-defined features. Even with the scar, it didn't affect his appearance. The scar was like a hand, gently cradling the side of his face. Thinking this, Melody Ashton's hand unconsciously reached out. Only when it touched that warm spot did she fully awaken, while Stephen Davenport just quietly watched her. "For you to be okay after such a dangerous situation means that many more good things will happen to you in the future," Melody Ashton said with certainty, comforting him. Stephen Davenport nodded. "All right, I believe you." She didn't know if it was her imagination, but Melody Ashton felt that this person seemed a little happy. Chapter 11, it had to be said, Stephen Davenport was truly thoughtful. Having seen the wedding dress she brought, all the designs he proposed for her were very elegant, simple yet sophisticated. The dress she had originally chosen, though from the best bridal shop in the city, was still too plain compared to the lookbook in her hands. Just as she was about to discuss the details of her favorite one with Stephen Davenport, Julian Kingsley's exclusive ringtone suddenly blared. It was a custom audio clip she had pestered Julian Kingsley to record when they first got together. It's me, your dearest Julian is calling." Melody Ashton thought she had thrown away everything related to Julian Kingsley, but she hadn't expected to miss this. Not answering, Stephen Davenport looked up at his slightly hesitant fiancé. Melody Ashton shook her head, placed her phone face down, and continued discussing the wedding dress with him. "I like this one very much, but I think the neckline here." She lowered her head and took another piece of paper to jot down details. If she had looked up then, she would have noticed Stephen Davenport's attention was entirely on her phone. Julian Kingsley? Back in the bedroom. Melody Ashton had just turned on her phone when a message from Julian Kingsley came through. "Melody, can you please answer the phone?" she sighed. She knew Julian Kingsley too well. If she didn't make things clear, he wouldn't give up. As soon as she dialed the number, Julian Kingsley's slightly urgent voice came through. "Melody, what's going on with the police? Didn't we drop the charges last time? Why are they coming to take Vivian Holloway away today?" After a moment of silence, Melody Ashton chuckled. "Are you calling just to talk about this? Don't be difficult, okay, Melody? I'm just doing this out of consideration for our old classmate. Vivian just returned to the country. Her life is already hard enough. How can she establish herself with another stain on her record? Didn't we agree? We'd get married after the charges were dropped. Don't you want to be with me anymore?" Julian Kingsley's tone was extremely gentle, but Melody Ashton only wanted to laugh. "Julian Kingsley, why haven't you been home? Have you been staying with Vivian Holloway all this time?" Julian Kingsley was at a loss for words. "I can't get away from Vivian Holloway's side for a moment, but believe me," he lowered his voice. "Don't be angry, okay? You know I wouldn't have anything with her. Who are you talking to, Julian?" Vivian Holloway's voice came from a distance, getting closer. "Is it Melody?" "Julian Kingsley, whatever you have to say, wait until you get home." With that, ignoring whatever sound came from the other end, Melody Ashton hung up the phone. "Julian Kingsley, when you return to that home, you'll know I no longer care what you two have." Chapter 12, Julian Kingsley knew he had to go home. For the past week, he had been taking care of Vivian Holloway around the clock. He told himself it was out of guilt. After all, Vivian Holloway had jumped into the sea because of something he said. If anything happened to her, he couldn't escape responsibility. That's right, that's just how it was. So, staying to take care of her was purely out of responsibility, nothing else. But for this whole week, his Melody hadn't tried to contact him either. Why? Julian Kingsley couldn't say whether Melody Ashton's silence was good or bad. His Melody was magnanimous, so she wouldn't overthink things. He should have been happy. Yet every night when he opened his phone's contact list, he found her chat window empty. Didn't she care about him anymore? Had she stopped keeping him in her heart? He was agitated. When the police came to take Vivian Holloway away during the day, Julian Kingsley finally learned that Melody Ashton hadn't dropped the charges. This was the first piece of information he had heard about Melody Ashton in 7 days. While waiting at a red light, Julian Kingsley saw a flower shop by the roadside. Remembering he hadn't sent Melody Ashton flowers in a long time, he thought for a moment and got out of the car. The florist, seeing him, enthusiastically asked who the flowers were for. Julian Kingsley didn't answer. He glanced around casually, saw some beautiful roses, and pointed at them. "Please wrap up those roses for me." The owner complied, carefully wrapping them for him. Julian Kingsley paced around the shop. The owner was shrewd and could tell he seemed to want something else, so he couldn't help but promote his wares. "We have other flowers here, all blooming beautifully. Would you like to take another look, sir?" Julian Kingsley looked around. "Do you have lilies?" Yes, the shop owner nodded. "Tulips, lilies, calla lilies, hyacinths make a bouquet for me," Julian Kingsley said, then added, "Wrap it nicely, it's for visiting a patient." Yes, bringing flowers for Vivian Holloway was just because she was a patient, a side thought. The roses were placed on the passenger seat, the other bouquet on the back seat. Julian Kingsley had it all figured out. When he got home, saw his flowers, and coaxed Melody Ashton a bit, she would surely forgive Vivian Holloway. He took a photo of the roses, intending to send it to Melody Ashton. However, as soon as the picture was sent, a bright red exclamation mark appeared. "The recipient has enabled friend verification. You are not yet their friend. Please send a friend request first. Chat can only be initiated after the recipient accepts the request." What? Julian Kingsley couldn't believe it. He looked down, wanting to dial Melody Ashton's number, but urgent honking came from behind. The light had turned green. Julian Kingsley cursed under his breath. While searching his call history and driving forward, a Cayenne next to him suddenly lost control. "The number you have dialed is temporarily unavailable. Please try again later." The cold electronic voice was the last thing Julian Kingsley heard. Chapter 13, as the wedding approached, Melody Ashton's parents had long since passed away, so she only notified Nina Kingsley among her relatives and friends. When the invitation was sent, Nina Kingsley was vacationing with her dear Leo Forrest in the Maldives. "Melody, are you really sure about this?" The sound of waves crashing against reefs came from behind Nina Kingsley, rhythmic and constant. Melody Ashton didn't find it noisy. Her friend's voice, mixed with the sound of the waves, made her feel incredibly at ease. "Melody, don't worry. If you don't want to marry him, there's still room to maneuver." Nina Kingsley wasn't joking. During her time wandering abroad with her boyfriend, she had also pondered this issue. She absolutely couldn't watch Melody Ashton jump from one pit of fire into another. She was powerless regarding her own brother's affairs. Ever since she met Melody Ashton, she knew Melody was the gentlest person, never willing to let others know about her grievances easily. She had seen how much Melody had cared for and invested in her brother in the past, so she knew that Melody's sudden decision to leave meant she could no longer bear it. "Don't worry, Nina." Melody Ashton knew Nina Kingsley was worried about her. "Stefan Davenport isn't like the rumors say. He's quite easy to get along with. Besides, I really want a home." Nina Kingsley paused. She knew what Melody Ashton meant. After a long silence, she said, "It's not good for me to appear at your wedding, but I'll have my boyfriend go and support you. I'll be outside too. Don't forget me then. Find a chance to bring me a glass of wedding wine." Her voice was full of guilt. "Melody, my brother wronged you. Now my happiness is also bought by your sacrifice." "I really don't know how to." "Don't say such things, Nina." Melody Ashton gently interrupted her. "I've never blamed you, and I don't feel like I'm sacrificing myself. Things between your brother and me couldn't be forced. He doesn't love me either. My decision to marry Stefan Davenport was my own." Perhaps the rumored Stefan Davenport was too terrifying, so Nina Kingsley's elopement this time had tacit approval from Richard and Victoria Kingsley. As long as the Davenport family didn't ask for her, they would pretend nothing happened. The Kingsleys still loved their daughter very much. But thinking of them, Melody Ashton sighed almost inaudibly. Her parents had passed away very early, so she always tiptoed around Julian Kingsley's parents, wanting to gain their approval. However, in all the years she was with Julian Kingsley, they were always critical of her, believing she wasn't good enough for their son. What kind of uncultured brat without parental upbringing is this? Daring to latch onto our Julian, she should save that thought of climbing the social ladder. But even without parental upbringing, didn't she get into one of the top 3 universities in the country, just like their son? However, regarding his parents' baseless malice towards her, Julian Kingsley never stood by her side, always saying they were old and wouldn't live with them in the future, so she should just tolerate them. But wasn't his seemingly peacemaking attitude also a form of taking sides? Melody Ashton didn't want to think about it anymore. She felt she would live well by Stefan Davenport's side. Chapter 14. On the wedding day, Leo Forrest delivered a large bag of things to Melody Ashton. "This is Nina's gift for you," Leo Forrest smiled sheepishly. "She's in the banquet hall next door." Melody Ashton said she knew and would go see her later. Leo Forrest had been live streaming the scene here for Nina Kingsley. As Nina watched, her peripheral vision suddenly caught a familiar figure flashing past her door. The wedding was halfway through, just as they were about to exchange vows, when the banquet hall doors were violently pulled open. It was Julian Kingsley. Julian Kingsley had been in the hospital for a week after a car accident. When he opened his eyes, he saw Vivian Holloway sleeping beside him. Where was Melody? As he moved, Vivian Holloway woke up. Before she could speak, she heard Julian Kingsley ask her, "Where is Melody Ashton?" Vivian Holloway pouted. "I've been taking care of you all these days. Julian, how can you ask about someone else as soon as you wake up?" What did she mean, someone else? How was Melody Ashton someone else? But he caught a more important piece of information. "You've been taking care of me these days?" "Of course," Vivian Holloway said, as if seeking credit. "If you don't believe me, just ask Uncle and Auntie. Thank goodness Auntie rescued me from the police station. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to see you." "Julian?" Vivian Holloway looked like she was about to cry. Julian Kingsley felt a bit dizzy, having just woken up. He asked again, "Then what about Melody Ashton? Didn't she come?" Of course, she wouldn't come. Victoria Kingsley, who had been listening outside the door for a while, couldn't hold back any longer. She didn't understand why her son insisted on being with Melody Ashton. "She hasn't even come to see you once all these days. It's been Vivian, this child, taking care of you. As soon as you wake up, you don't care about her, but instead mention some irrelevant person." Julian Kingsley felt inexplicably annoyed. He opened his phone. The chat history with Melody Ashton still ended with that red exclamation mark. Melody Ashton had deleted him. But didn't Melody Ashton tell him they'd talk when he got home? He had a strong premonition. He had to go home. Seeing him get up, Vivian Holloway quickly tried to stop him. "Julian, you just woke up. Where are you going?" "I'm going for a walk downstairs." Julian Kingsley made a random excuse. His mind was a mess, and he urgently needed an answer. Victoria Kingsley had just left. Vivian Holloway knew she couldn't stop Julian Kingsley, so she hailed a cab and secretly followed him. Julian Kingsley arrived at the villa. It was incredibly quiet. He opened the main door and saw the empty living room. His assistant said that half a month ago, the housekeeper had told him Melody Ashton had taken a leave of absence, saying she would return in a month. Julian Kingsley searched everywhere. Everything related to Melody Ashton in the house had been packed away. Julian Kingsley didn't know if she had moved them to a new place or thrown them away directly. He searched frantically around the house, hoping to find some clue. Suddenly, he noticed a note on the refrigerator. He strode over. It was her familiar handwriting. "Julian Kingsley, as you wished, let's break up. You're free. Wishing you and Vivian Holloway 100 years of happiness." What did this mean? Julian Kingsley frowned deeply. Had Melody Ashton left? But where could she go if she left him? She only had him in this world. How could she just leave? Was it because of Vivian Holloway? But he had clearly told her that at most, he only felt a sense of concern for Vivian Holloway. It was impossible for him to have anything with her. He had explained it to her so many times. Why didn't she believe him? Julian Kingsley felt uneasy. He really couldn't understand Melody Ashton's meaning. He reached into his pocket for a pack of cigarettes. Just as he was about to light one, Vivian Holloway rushed in from outside. "Julian, you can't smoke now." Julian Kingsley looked at Vivian Holloway, who had suddenly rushed in, feeling inexplicably irritated. He hadn't smoked in a long time. In his junior year, when the Kingsley family went bankrupt and Vivian Holloway broke up with him, everything piled up on his shoulders. He learned to hustle for business and gradually picked up a smoking habit. But later, when he got together with Melody Ashton, she hated the smell of smoke, and he had to play the role of a perfect boyfriend, so he slowly quit. Out of habit, even though he no longer smoked, he always kept a pack in his pocket. The person who should have stopped him from smoking was Melody Ashton. Yet, the one who rushed in now was Vivian Holloway. He felt an indescribable discomfort in his heart. Back at the hospital, he went to great lengths to investigate and finally found news about Melody Ashton. It was a trending topic about the eldest son of the Davenport family finally getting married. Stephen Davenport. He knew this was his sister's arranged marriage partner, who had suddenly disappeared. And the name linked with Stephen Davenport on this trending topic was actually Melody Ashton. Melody Ashton was getting married to Stephen Davenport. What kind of joke was this? His first instinct was to deny it. Suddenly, he remembered the class reunion from not long ago. "I'm getting married soon. If you're not, put down a finger." So, Melody Ashton wasn't talking about marrying him back then? How could that be possible? Chapter 15, seeing the approaching figure from afar, Stephen Davenport frowned and quickly gave his assistant a look. The security guards stationed outside the door silently dragged Julian Kingsley out. This was his and Melody Ashton's wedding. He couldn't let anyone ruin it, nor could he absolutely allow Mr. Davenport Sr., who was in the audience, to be agitated. Julian Kingsley usually kept fit, but having just been discharged from the hospital, he had no strength. As he was gagged and dragged out from behind the door, he was even recognized by reporters who had come to cover the event. He couldn't care about any of that, as he was unceremoniously thrown into an adjacent reception room by the group of men. Before he could even get up from the floor, he heard a familiar cry of surprise, "Brother?" Nina Kingsley was utterly shocked to encounter Julian Kingsley here. "What are you doing here?" They both spoke at the same time. Julian Kingsley pursed his lips and asked again, "Aren't you supposed to be marrying Stephen Davenport? Why is Melody inside?" "Melody is marrying him in my place," Nina Kingsley said defiantly. "So, why are you here? Didn't you know Melody is about to marry me?" Julian Kingsley stared intently at Nina Kingsley. Nina Kingsley retorted just as fiercely, "Really? How come I haven't heard? Aren't you with your old flame? You even outbid everyone at a high price for her first night. You really weren't afraid of everyone knowing, or perhaps," Nina Kingsley sneered, "or perhaps you did it on purpose, wanting Melody to know? What do you know?" Julian Kingsley retorted. I did it to get revenge on Vivian Holloway. How could I possibly be with her? Revenge on her? Nina Kingsley sounded as if she'd heard something hilarious. I've never heard of getting revenge on someone by sleeping with them, much less heard of getting revenge on someone by making your own official girlfriend suffer. You don't know, do you, Julian Kingsley? Nina Kingsley could no longer be bothered to call him brother. You have no idea what your precious old flame sent to Melody, do you? If I hadn't borrowed her card, I still wouldn't know you were so promiscuous in bed, brother. The last two words were ground out through gritted teeth. Julian Kingsley felt as if he'd been struck by lightning. Vivian Holloway actually went to find Melody Ashton. The biggest regret of being good friends with Melody was introducing you too, Nina Kingsley said angrily. If I could, I wish I had never taken her to see your basketball game in the first place. Then she would never have met you in her life. Nina Kingsley was still thinking about how to get Julian Kingsley out when familiar footsteps approached from outside. She turned around and saw Melody Ashton, who was about to bring her a celebratory drink. Melody Ashton was also stunned. She had been thinking about Nina Kingsley, so as soon as she finished toasting the Davenport elders, she immediately made an excuse to slip out. She hadn't expected to see Julian Kingsley here. Come to think of it, there had indeed been a commotion at the entrance during the wedding ceremony, but Stephen Davenport had deliberately blocked her view, so she hadn't seen anything. So it was Julian Kingsley. Nina Kingsley reached out to take Melody Ashton's hand, but Julian Kingsley was quicker. He yanked Melody Ashton's hand, staring at her intently. Why are you married, Melody? Couldn't you wait? Didn't I say we'd discuss marriage when I got back? I don't think I agreed to marry you, did I? Melody Ashton shook off his hand and stood with Nina Kingsley, her face wearing a cold expression that Julian Kingsley found unfamiliar. Couldn't you wait? Julian Kingsley asked, unwilling to give up. Have you registered your marriage with him? If not, we can go to the Civil Affairs Bureau right now. I don't mind that you've had a wedding ceremony with him. And the condition? Melody Ashton swirled the wine in her glass. Is it for me to withdraw the lawsuit? Then she scoffed. Your Kingsley family is so powerful. Your mother could bail her out once, so let her continue to bail her out. Trading marriage for me to withdraw the lawsuit? Don't you think you're wronging yourself too much, Julian Kingsley? Julian Kingsley was about to say more, but was forcefully pushed by his own sister. That's enough. Are you going to cause trouble on Melody's wedding day too? Nina Kingsley truly hadn't expected her own brother to spout such nonsensical ravings. She would absolutely not allow Julian Kingsley to act insane on such an important day. Since you're here, Julian Kingsley, why not have a celebratory drink before you leave? Melody Ashton poured herself a glass and, without further ado, was about to splash it on Julian Kingsley, but was bumped aside by Vivian Holloway, who had appeared from nowhere. You're going too far, Melody Ashton. The wine spilled all over Vivian Holloway. Melody Ashton, wearing high heels, was pushed so hard she nearly fell, but luckily, Stephen Davenport, who had rushed over from behind, caught her in time. Are you all right? Melody Ashton nodded. Just now, she had briefly explained the situation to Stephen Davenport and then ran out alone to find Nina Kingsley, leaving him to deal with relatives and friends. However, when she didn't return for a long time, Stephen Davenport came out to check, only to witness this scene. Melody Ashton frowned. She hadn't expected to encounter Vivian Holloway here either. However, Vivian Holloway wasn't the only one who had come. I was wondering why you suddenly disappeared. Victoria Kingsley walked quickly into the reception room. Julian Kingsley had his assistant hastily book a flight to America. Vivian Holloway, sensing something was amiss, had informed Victoria Kingsley, and they had rushed over after Julian Kingsley. Mom, why are you here? Nina Kingsley was somewhat surprised. Victoria Kingsley glanced at her. I'll deal with you later. So, you ignored Julian because you've latched onto the big tree of the Davenport family? Victoria Kingsley turned back, glaring fiercely at Melody Ashton. Do you know that my son was hit by a car because of you and only woke up yesterday? As soon as he woke up, he rushed here to find you, and look at you. Victoria Kingsley pushed away Julian Kingsley, who was trying to dissuade her. You ran off to become someone else's daughter-in-law. How could you do this to Julian? Melody Ashton was about to say something, but Stephen Davenport silently stepped in front of her. Auntie Kingsley, regarding why Melody married me, I think you should know better than any of us. Moreover, Melody is now the daughter-in-law of the Davenport family. She has no obligation to answer your questions. Victoria Kingsley was speechless. She hadn't expected Stephen Davenport to speak up for Melody Ashton. Is she even worthy of entering your Davenport family's doors? The moment she saw Julian injured, she felt there was no hope and immediately left him. Do you think she'll stay dutifully in your family? Vivian Holloway's shrill voice reached Melody Ashton's ears. She felt utterly bewildered. Where did all these baseless accusations come from? Was Julian Kingsley injured because of me? Melody Ashton questioned, then turned to Julian Kingsley. Did I cause your car accident? Julian Kingsley quickly shook his head. Vivian Holloway was indignant. Then do you dare say you didn't marry Stephen Davenport for money? I heard it's because his grandfather is dying, so? Shut up, Julian Kingsley finally couldn't bear it anymore. Apologized to Melody. When Vivian Holloway mentioned Stephen Davenport's grandfather, Melody Ashton noticed Stephen Davenport's eyes turn cold. You want me to apologize to her? Vivian Holloway laughed miserably. What did I say wrong? Melody Ashton? I've really had enough. Nina Kingsley finally couldn't listen anymore and slapped Vivian Holloway across the face. Meeting Vivian Holloway's incredulous gaze, she lifted her chin. I really don't know what my brother saw in you. What nonsense are you up to now? Victoria Kingsley hadn't expected her own daughter to side with an outsider. Anxious and angry, she had her assistant, Little Lee, quickly take Nina Kingsley away. Nina Kingsley secretly gave Melody Ashton a look. Melody Ashton knew she was about to run off with her dear Leo Forrest again. Seeing Melody Ashton looking like she was watching a joke, Victoria Kingsley's anger flared. She raised her hand to slap Melody Ashton, but her wrist was caught by a stone-faced Stephen Davenport. Hello, I want to report a case. Someone here is causing trouble and has seriously threatened my personal safety. Julian Kingsley stood there stunned, looking incredulously at Melody Ashton, who was calling the police. Are you crazy? This is your mo? It seems my fee for changing how one addresses new in-laws wasn't enough. Eleanor Davenport stood at the doorway. She had been watching this farce for a while. I wasn't aware my daughter-in-law had to call someone else, Mom. She walked over, patted Melody Ashton's shoulder comfortingly. It's all right, dear child. I'll handle this. You and Stephen go inside and accompany grandfather. Chapter 16 in the jewelry store. Eleanor Davenport held Melody Ashton's hand, leading her to try on pieces one by one. If Melody Ashton showed the slightest interest, she would immediately tell the staff to wrap it up. Eleanor Davenport was very fond of Melody Ashton. After the wedding incident, she had carefully investigated what happened and learned about everything Melody Ashton had endured with the Kingsley family. What we found out is already so much. What we haven't must be even worse. From then on, Eleanor Davenport's gaze towards Melody Ashton carried a hint of pity. Stephen Davenport was the sole heir of the Davenport family, and Eleanor had always wanted a daughter. Unfortunately, Stephen's father had passed away early. But now, with Melody Ashton, Eleanor genuinely liked this child and treated her like her own daughter. The butler behind them was already laden with bags. Melody Ashton excused herself to go to the restroom, letting Eleanor Davenport browse on her own. Just as she reached the corner, Julian Kingsley grabbed her hand. She had seen him long ago. From the first floor, she had seen Julian Kingsley with Vivian Holloway. By the third floor, only he remained. She shook off Julian Kingsley's hand. If you have something to say, just say it. Don't be so handsy in public. Julian Kingsley wanted to say something, but Melody Ashton's cold attitude left him unsure where to begin. Seeing his silence, Melody Ashton didn't want to waste time with him. Julian Kingsley, seeing her about to leave, quickly stopped her. Why did you leave me? As he spoke, Julian Kingsley found his voice hoarse beyond belief. Since the wedding incident, due to the Davenports' deliberate arrangements, he had been forced to deal with them, having no time to find Melody Ashton and demand an explanation. He thought, hadn't he been good enough to Melody Ashton? Why would Melody Ashton treat him like this? The after effects of the car accident left Julian Kingsley drained. He had lost a lot of weight these past few days. Melody Ashton smiled. Julian Kingsley, are you very worried that I'm the type of person who will cling to you? If you can't let go of Vivian Holloway, you can just tell me directly. I, Melody Ashton, dare to act and take responsibility. I can pick things up and put them down. What about you, Julian Kingsley? Can you? Julian Kingsley was stunned. He didn't know if Melody Ashton was speaking out of anger. During this time, due to Victoria Kingsley's instigation, Vivian Holloway had stayed by his side. He kept saying he wanted revenge on Vivian Holloway, yet he uncontrollably wanted to be intimately entangled with her. Admit it, Julian, Vivian Holloway caressed his face during a pause, her voice soft as a phantom. You just can't let me go. Vivian Holloway's voice was like a hook, tempting him to go deeper. However, Julian Kingsley suddenly felt it was all meaningless. He rolled off the bed, not doing it anymore. Vivian Holloway was still saying something on the bed. He found it noisy. He wanted to get up and pour a glass of water, but found one of the cups in the house missing. He frowned. It was that ceramic mug. When they had visited a pottery town earlier, Melody Ashton said she wanted to learn pottery, so they each made a mug for the other. The mug Julian Kingsley made had a small line of text engraved on the bottom. Melody's exclusive. At that time, he hadn't controlled the firing temperature well, and a small smudge appeared on the Chinese character for sound in Melody's exclusive. So, Julian Kingsley used a special pen to draw a heart over it. Melody Ashton, seeing this, did the same, drawing one above Julian's exclusive. This way, it counts as a pair, Melody Ashton had commented with satisfaction. But now, only the Julian's exclusive mug remained on the coffee table. He didn't know why he suddenly thought of Melody Ashton. He attributed it to his love for Melody Ashton. But did he really love Melody Ashton? If he loved Melody Ashton, would he really sleep with Vivian Holloway? Sleeping with Vivian Holloway was just for revenge. Julian Kingsley told himself over and over, just for revenge. Lost in thought, he didn't notice the look in Vivian Holloway's eyes as she stared at that ceramic mug, as hateful as if it were laced with poison. Admit it, Julian Kingsley, you just can't let go of Vivian Holloway. Melody Ashton didn't want to waste any more time with Julian Kingsley. She sneered, since you can't let go, why not just be with her? Besides, I have my own family now. Stop pestering me. But I love you. Julian Kingsley lowered his head, clinging to Melody Ashton, not letting her go. An inexplicable fear gripped his heart, a gut feeling that if he let go this time, he would never see her again. Love me, Melody Ashton scoffed. Only you know how much of your love is true and how much is false. In your family, only your sister truly treated me well. Melody Ashton forcefully broke free from his embrace and, ignoring him, returned to the jewelry store. As soon as she entered, she saw Mrs. Davenport waiting anxiously for her. Seeing her return, Mrs. Davenport quickly led her back. To the hospital. Grandfather is in trouble. Chapter 17, Julian Kingsley returned home, dejected. As soon as he entered, Victoria Kingsley slapped him. Mom, he was stunned. You still have the face to call me Mom? Victoria Kingsley threw a USB drive at Julian Kingsley's face. See for yourself how that bitch harmed our family. Julian Kingsley connected the USB drive. Inside was an audio file and a PDF. What is this? What is it? Victoria Kingsley repeated his words with a cold snort. Won't you know if you look at it yourself? Vivian Holloway stood aside, calming Victoria Kingsley down. A cacophony of music, as if recorded in some song and dance venue. He's so stupid, I haven't wanted to be with him for a long time, Melody Ashton's voice. Julian Kingsley felt as if struck by lightning. I want money, yes, he won't know. The background noise was too loud. Melody Ashton's voice was intermittent. Julian Kingsley held his breath to concentrate. I'll give you the information tomorrow. The recording ended there. What information? Julian Kingsley was still dazed. Victoria Kingsley motioned for him to look at the PDF. His hand felt weak, he couldn't click the mouse. Vivian Holloway kindly clicked it open for him. The person inside was Melody Ashton. It was Melody Ashton from her university days. A face Julian Kingsley knew all too well, but the person's actions were so unfamiliar. A pyramid of champagne glasses, Melody Ashton in a stranger's embrace. Too much, Julian Kingsley didn't want to see any more and directly closed the entire page. Impossible. He stood up, not believing Melody Ashton had betrayed him. Victoria Kingsley was exasperated. You've seen her character. I warned you long ago, someone like her latched onto you only for money. And that recording, the file, I've intercepted it. See for yourself. A stack of documents was lightly placed on his laptop. He opened it. Inside was the Kingsley Corporation's bidding proposal. Vivian is still the best. Vivian painstakingly found all this evidence. This time, we must make Melody Ashton pay. Victoria Kingsley was still talking, but Julian Kingsley couldn't hear anymore. He had been with Melody Ashton for so long, he knew exactly what kind of person she was. She couldn't have betrayed him. I'll find out the truth. The evidence is all here. What more do you need to investigate? Victoria Kingsley interrupted him. Or are you still going to favor that bitch? Mom, Julian Kingsley had had enough. Auntie, just let Julian investigate. Vivian Holloway quickly helped calm Victoria Kingsley. He knows what to do, right, Julian? Julian Kingsley mumbled a reply and sent a message to his assistant. At the hospital, after emergency treatment by a top medical team, Mr. Davenport S.R.'s condition finally stabilized. It was a stroke, the doctor said. The patient's condition is very critical. He needs to maintain a calm state of mind and avoid significant emotional fluctuations. Melody Ashton held Stephen Davenport's hand, trying to soothe his mood. Stephen Davenport was raised single-handedly by his grandfather, so Melody Ashton knew that Grandfather Davenport was very important to Stephen Davenport. After Mr. Davenport S.R. woke up, he saw Melody Ashton holding Stephen Davenport's hand by the bedside, while his grandson stood there stiffly, like an unromantic block of wood. So he coughed lightly twice to attract their attention. "Stephen, Melody is talking to you. Why don't you even smile?" The old man decided to help his grandson. Stephen Davenport understood the implication in his grandfather's words. Before he could speak, he heard Melody Ashton come to his rescue. "Stephen is worried about you, Grandpa," Melody Ashton said with a smile. "We were just discussing when you'd wake up, so we could cook and bring food over for you." "Good child," Mr. Davenport S.R. finally smiled. "But Grandpa is fine, I can go home later." "How can that be?" Stephen Davenport disagreed. "This situation was so urgent, you need to stay in the hospital for observation for a while longer." "I'm old, not incapable," the old man huffed. "I know my own body very well. Don't tell me you're starting to dislike your grandpa and won't let me live at home anymore, huh?" Melody Ashton heard Mr. Davenport S.R. joking and said, "How could that be, Grandpa? Stephen is just worried about your health. Let's observe for a while first. If the doctor says it's okay, we'll immediately come back and pick you up." Only then did Mr. Davenport S.R. agree, even glancing at Stephen Davenport before they left. How come the same words sound so much more comforting when Melody says them? Melody Ashton saw that everything was fine here and prepared to go back and make some medicinal soup for her grandfather. Due to previous work needs, she had taken care of stroke patients for a while and had specially learned to make medicinal cuisine. Seeing Melody Ashton about to leave, Mr. Davenport S.R. quickly told his grandson to see her off. In the supermarket, Melody Ashton carefully selected bitter melon and shiitake mushrooms. Stephen Davenport watched her serious expression and couldn't help asking, "How do you know how to make medicinal cuisine?" Melody Ashton placed the selected bitter melon into the basket. "I needed to earn money during university, so I worked as a caregiver for a while. There was a grandmother in the hospital who also had a stroke. Her son was out of town and couldn't come back, so he hired me to take care of her. Her son sent me many medicinal cuisine recipes and asked me to learn how to make them. Maybe I really have some talent in this area. It felt quite useful." After some time, that grandmother's spirits improved a lot. Later, her son returned and took her to his city for treatment. She didn't know what happened to her afterwards. Thinking of that grandmother, Melody Ashton still missed her. But thinking of other things from that time, a bitter smile touched Melody Ashton's lips. "What's wrong?" Stephen Davenport asked with concern, noticing the change in Melody Ashton's emotions. "Nothing," Melody Ashton shook her head. "I just feel that it's so wonderful for two people to buy groceries together and go home together." This was a secret happiness, representing family harmony, representing a happy childhood, but she had neither. When she was little, she always watched other children's parents buying groceries together and going home, and she was always very envious whenever she saw them. This scene was the personification of happiness in her heart, yet she had never experienced it. Previously, with Julian Kingsley, she had requested it, but Julian Kingsley said the housekeeper could do the grocery shopping. She never brought it up again. However, this time, Stephen Davenport solemnly took her hand and promised her, Then from now on, let's buy groceries and cook at home together every day, okay? Melody Ashton's heart stirred. Okay. Chapter 18. When Julian Kingsley received a call from his assistant, he was overwhelmed with company affairs. His project plans were frequently leaked, and all evidence pointed to Melody Ashton. Mr. Kingsley, Marcus Thorne's voice was hesitant. I investigated further. One of the people in the photos is named Louis Morgan. He was originally in City C, but he seems to know I was looking for him and has now fled to City F. Should I continue to follow him or look for the next person involved? Louis Morgan. Julian Kingsley pinched the bridge of his nose. He remembered this person. He was a well-known rich kid at school, always whining and dining. His family had also had business dealings with Julian's family. When the Kingsley Corporation went bankrupt, the Morgan family was also somewhat implicated. At that time, he was wandering aimlessly on campus. When he ran into Louis Morgan on the road, he was met with ridicule for a while. Being a hot-headed youth, no matter how much he tried to tolerate it, he couldn't satisfy Louis Morgan. It's fine if you go bankrupt yourself, but you have to drag others down with you, right? Dragging my dad into investing with you, was it to make our family your blood bank? Louis Morgan pressed closer. Why don't people like you who harm others just die? Why don't you jump off a building like your dad and end it all? Julian Kingsley looked up and said word by word, say that again. Louis Morgan taunted him dismissively, say it again. I'll say it 100 times. It's still the same. Do you still think you're the young master of the Kingsley family? You should just die with your cowardly old dad. Julian Kingsley couldn't take it anymore. A vein throbbed on the back of his hand, and he grabbed Louis Morgan's neck, repeatedly smashing his head against a tree. Later, Melody Ashton found them, seemingly out of nowhere. She held onto Julian Kingsley tightly, trying to make him stop. The Kingsley Corporation was in trouble. Julian Kingsley couldn't afford to get into more trouble. Melody Ashton, it was Melody Ashton again. Julian Kingsley realized that Melody Ashton's shadow seemed to be present at every important juncture of his life. Mr. Kingsley? Having not received Julian Kingsley's instructions for a long time, Marcus Thorne asked again, should I continue investigating? Investigate, Julian Kingsley said. Go find him. No matter what method you use, you must find out what happened back then. After the call ended, a figure quietly disappeared from the doorway of Julian Kingsley's office. Mr. Davenport SR showered praises on the medicinal cuisine Melody Ashton sent, vowing it was the best food he had ever eaten. Stephen Davenport unceremoniously debunked him. Really? Then who was it last time, after eating my braised pork ribs, said even the best chef at a Michelin restaurant couldn't compare, and now? You, Mr. Davenport SR. Raised his hand as if to discipline Stephen Davenport. Stephen Davenport immediately dodged, making Melody Ashton laugh. After eating, Stephen Davenport and Melody Ashton discussed going to see the doctor later to ask how much longer observation was needed. Just as they were about to leave, Mr. Davenport SR called them back. Let Stephen go do the work. He's a grown man. Does he need someone to accompany him just to ask a few questions? Melody, you just sit here and wait for him. Melody Ashton smiled and nodded, knowing that Mr. Davenport SR had something to say to her alone, so she let Stephen Davenport go out first. Melody, dear, Mr. Davenport SR began, choosing his words carefully. He had lived for so many years and met countless people. He could tell whether they were good or bad underneath just by interacting with them. However, Melody Ashton, he truly liked her. It wasn't that he hadn't investigated her background. After seeing her information, Mr. Davenport SR felt Melody Ashton's rarity and preciousness even more, so he didn't want her to suffer any grievances. What is it, Grandpa? Melody Ashton only heard Mr. Davenport SR call her name and then nothing more. I know you and Stephen got married to appease this old man, Mr. Davenport SR sat up, his tone becoming serious. I genuinely like you, child, so I don't want to wrong you. If you don't like Stephen, you don't have to force yourself. Melody Ashton thought Mr. Davenport SR had kept her back to ask about Stephen Davenport's condition. She hadn't expected it to be about this matter, and she suddenly didn't know how to answer. She had always wanted a home, and everyone in Stephen Davenport's family took good care of her, treating her like a real family member. She genuinely felt happy, not wronged at all. Moreover, Stephen Davenport was truly good to her. He remembered everything she said casually and always fulfilled his promises to her. "Grandpa," she said softly, "I don't feel wronged. I'm very happy in the Davenport family and Stephen is very good to me. I don't feel forced." Mr. Davenport Sr. sighed. "Stephen has a sense of responsibility. You don't have to worry about him doing bad things. It's just that you've only felt his kindness towards you. Do you truly love him? Grandpa is just worried that you're blinded by familial affection, thinking that being treated well is enough. If there's no love between you and Stephen, the marriage will eventually become painful." Melody Ashton fell silent. She knew Mr. Davenport Sr.'s words were not without reason. Seeing Melody Ashton with her head down, Mr. Davenport Sr. added, "Grandpa isn't trying to drive you away. Grandpa knows you're a good child and wishes you could stay forever. I'm just worried that you're not happy." Coming out of the hospital, the doctor informed them that Grandpa could be discharged in another week. Melody Ashton walked to the car and found the driver missing. Just as she was wondering, she saw Stephen Davenport get into the driver's seat. "I gave the driver a break. He'll come back after a while." Melody Ashton nodded and got into the car. She watched the fleeting neon lights outside, thinking about what Mr. Davenport Sr. had said to her during the day. Did she really love Stephen Davenport? The streetlights were receding, and the night grew thicker. "I thought he was going to tell you something, but it turns out he was trying to instigate our divorce, wasn't he?" Stephen Davenport's voice betrayed no emotion, as if he were discussing a trivial matter. Melody Ashton reacted, "How dare you eavesdrop?" "It wasn't intentional." His hand tapped lightly on the steering wheel. "Your door wasn't closed, and I came back quickly after asking my questions." Melody Ashton didn't speak. "Our previous agreement still stands. If you're unwilling, I won't force you." Chapter 19, seeing that Julian Kingsley was making no move, Victoria Kingsley decided to approach Melody Ashton first. She still remembered the incident where Julian Kingsley had called the police and had her taken to the station. At her age, she absolutely could not accept such humiliation. Vivian Holloway understood Victoria Kingsley's thoughts best. The deck recording provided by Melody Ashton had solidified her criminal act. Although Victoria Kingsley intended to bail her out, she knew that as long as Melody Ashton pressed the issue, she would definitely go back in. Moreover, Melody Ashton was now closely associated with the Davenport family. If things were pursued, even Victoria Kingsley might not be able to protect her. So, she volunteered to teach Melody Ashton a lesson. Julian Kingsley hadn't been back here in a long time. He pushed open the door. The butler had already returned from his leave. They greeted Julian Kingsley as before. Julian Kingsley felt as if he had returned to a previous time, only this home no longer held any trace of Melody Ashton. He had come back this time to take that mug. Handmade, it shouldn't be wasted. He told himself this, but he searched the entire cabinet and couldn't find that mug. He asked the butler and learned that Vivian Holloway had accidentally broken it a few days ago, so they had cleared it away. Vivian Holloway. Julian Kingsley's anger flared, and he immediately headed towards Vivian Holloway's place. "What's wrong, Julian?" Vivian Holloway was still happy to see Julian Kingsley when she opened the door. She knew that although Julian Kingsley always said he hated her and wanted revenge, she was sure she had him wrapped around her finger. "Where's my mug?" "What?" She was clueless. Had Julian Kingsley come looking for her just for a mug? "What mug? Don't play dumb." Julian Kingsley's voice was icy, making Vivian Holloway inexplicably afraid. The mug, she suddenly remembered the mug she had deliberately smashed a few days ago, the one with Julian's exclusive written on the base. "It's broken," she replied. Julian Kingsley struggled to control his emotions. "Did you do it on purpose?" "Ha," Vivian Holloway scoffed. "It's just a mug. If it's broken, it's broken. What's the difference between intentional and unintentional?" Vivian Holloway had broken it intentionally, but so what? Julian Kingsley wouldn't get angry with her over a mere mug. "That was my mug," Julian Kingsley said, word by word. "Really, Julian? You have so many mugs at home, and you just had to use this one." Knowing full well what Julian Kingsley meant, Vivian Holloway still wouldn't let him have an easy time. "Or perhaps this mug was a gift from your old flame, so you can't bear to part with it." Julian Kingsley sneered. "What right do you have to know? I let you stay there out of pity. What right do you have to throw away Melody Ashton's things?" Melody Ashton is Stephen Davenport's wife, Vivian Holloway retorted, not to be outdone. What do you mean by privately keeping another man's wife's belongings? Are you crazy? Although Vivian Holloway lived far from the city center, people still passed by. So Julian Kingsley grabbed her neck and pushed her back into the room. Vivian Holloway seemed to understand something. So the mug was your excuse. What? Mr. Kingsley, Vivian Holloway's hands wrapped around his neck, didn't you come looking for me just to sleep with me? Julian Kingsley was momentarily speechless, but he made no further movements. Vivian Holloway in his hands gave him a triumphant smile. He couldn't refute Vivian Holloway's words. His phone ringing temporarily pulled him out of this stalemate. It was Marcus Thorne. Sorry, Mr. Kingsley, something came up here. This matter is a bit complicated, and it also involves Miss Holloway, but I've brought Louis Morgan back. It would be best if you question them yourself, Mr. Kingsley. Getting the specific address, Julian Kingsley was about to leave immediately. Vivian Holloway tugged at his clothes. She didn't know who had just called, but Julian Kingsley had been busy with official matters lately. She hadn't seen him in a long time, so she didn't want him to leave. Julian Kingsley glanced at her, remembering Marcus Thorne's words just now also involves Miss Holloway. He sneered and took her into the car. Chapter 20, Marcus Thorne was good at picking places. When Vivian Holloway got out of the car, she found it was an abandoned oil refinery in the suburbs. A sense of fear crept into her heart. Throughout the journey, she had tried to talk to Julian Kingsley, but he ignored her. She had even forgot her phone at home. Julian Kingsley motioned for her to walk forward. Vivian Holloway was bewildered but did as she was told, until she saw Louis Morgan tied up and thrown on the ground by Marcus Thorne. She understood at once. She tried to run out but was grabbed by Julian Kingsley and thrown to the ground, hitting the edge of a cement barrel. The sound of a bone breaking was heard. She cried out in pain. Louis Morgan, recognizing the newcomer, became very agitated. Julian Kingsley gestured to Marcus Thorne, and the cloth stuffed in Louis Morgan's mouth was pulled out. Pa, cough, cough, Louis Morgan coughed violently. It was her, Julian Kingsley. It was her. She stole those files. I never intended to get involved with you, Julian Kingsley. You know, we never got along. If she hadn't approached me saying she'd help me, I wouldn't have come looking for trouble with you. Julian Kingsley glanced at Vivian Holloway. She never expected Louis Morgan to be found. Ever since she heard Julian Kingsley tell Marcus Thorne to find Louis Morgan, she had contacted a group of thugs, intending to silence Louis Morgan. But how could Louis Morgan be found by Marcus Thorne and brought before Julian Kingsley? She saw Julian Kingsley's scrutinizing gaze and immediately crawled over, enduring the pain. How can you believe him, Julian? He's lying to you, stealing files. How could I get access to your files? Didn't the recording say that Melody Ashton stole them? You clearly heard it. It was her, Louis Morgan interrupted Vivian Holloway. He thought he could have a mutually beneficial and easily separable relationship with Vivian Holloway, but he never expected this bitch to hire people to kill him. He would never help this woman again. The recording was synthesized. Vivian Holloway stole Melody Ashton's voice and used AI to create that file. Louis Morgan, are you tired of living? Vivian Holloway cursed, forgetting her image. What good will slandering me do you? Did someone bribe you? You're such a good dog. Am I the one who doesn't want to live? Louis Morgan had already thrown caution to the wind. If it weren't for Marcus Thorne, I would have been disposed of by the killers you hired long ago. Do you still want me to help you now? What about the PDF then? Julian Kingsley had been silent until now. He didn't want to watch these two tear each other apart. On the way, Marcus Thorne had briefly explained what happened. He had already found Louis Morgan, but Louis Morgan had fled like a frightened bird until he later learned that Louis Morgan thought Marcus Thorne was also a killer hired by Vivian Holloway. What PDF? Louis Morgan was completely bewildered, while Vivian Holloway became very agitated. Seeing this, Marcus Thorne immediately covered Vivian Holloway's mouth and restrained her. Julian Kingsley pulled up an image. Louis Morgan's face turned pale instantly upon seeing it. If you don't talk, I'll throw you out immediately. By then, I'm afraid you won't have run far before you disappear from this world, right? Julian Kingsley put away the photo. He caught Louis Morgan's hesitation and threatened him lightly. Louis Morgan was still hesitating when Julian Kingsley's phone vibrated. It was an unknown number. Where is Melody Ashton? It was Stephen Davenport's voice. What do you mean? Julian Kingsley didn't want to receive Stephen Davenport's call at all, but it was strange. Stephen Davenport was asking him where Melody Ashton was. Had something happened to Melody Ashton? Surveillance shows the last person Melody saw was Vivian Holloway. Hearing this, Julian Kingsley quickly walked up to Vivian Holloway. He pinched her chin, forcing her mouth open. Where did you take Melody? Chapter 21, Vivian Holloway sneered. Melody, you call her so intimately. She's long been part of the Davenport family. Julian Kingsley hung up the phone. Before Vivian Holloway could react, her left cheek was slapped hard. She was incredulous. You hit me? Julian Kingsley, you actually hit me. Are you crazy? Julian Kingsley's hand rested on her neck, his voice softening. I'll ask you one last time, where is Melody? Vivian Holloway suddenly laughed, spitting out blood from her mouth. You haven't fallen in love with her, have you? She looked Julian Kingsley straight in the eye. You only liked her because of me, and now I'm back. Why are you still focused on her? Don't act your way into deceiving yourself, Julian Kingsley. Good, very good. Julian Kingsley smiled, leaving her in the warehouse. You question Louis Morgan about the PDF first. I'll go find Melody. Send me the results when you get them. You can do whatever you want with both of them. After instructing Marcus Thorne, Julian Kingsley rushed out. Marcus Thorne was his assistant and also his enforcer. Julian Kingsley had relied heavily on illicit dealings to re-establish himself in City A, and Marcus Thorne's help had been indispensable. Not long after he left, Julian Kingsley received a recording. He played it. It was Louis Morgan's voice. It turned out that after the Kingsley Corporation went bankrupt and Vivian Holloway broke up with Julian Kingsley, Melody Ashton couldn't bear to see Julian Kingsley sinking into depression, so she went to find Vivian Holloway, hoping Vivian Holloway wouldn't leave Julian Kingsley. All right, Vivian Holloway had said, then go accompany clients for drinks for me. For every man you accompany, I'll stay an extra day. But in reality, Vivian Holloway hadn't stayed. She just wanted to see how far Melody Ashton would go for Julian Kingsley. You really are a good dog raised by Julian Kingsley, Vivian Holloway had said, looking mockingly at a drunk Melody Ashton. Take the photos. So that was it. You should know what to do, right? Julian Kingsley asked. Yes, Marcus Thorne replied. The sound of Vivian Holloway's screams could be heard in the background. Julian Kingsley, finding it noisy, hung up. At the same place, he saw that flower shop again. It was already closed. He thought of the 2 bouquets from last time. Neither had been delivered. He regretted deeply why he had treated Melody Ashton that way. Nina Kingsley was right. It would have been better if Melody Ashton had never met him. If she hadn't met him, hadn't been with him, then she wouldn't have suffered so much harm. He owed Melody Ashton a debt he could never repay in this lifetime. Meanwhile, Stephen Davenport had found Melody Ashton's exact location based on her phone signal. The thugs who kidnapped her hadn't received Vivian Holloway's instructions for a long time and were at a standstill, which gave Stephen Davenport enough time to call for reinforcements. The warehouse door was broken down by the police. The thugs were quickly subdued. Stephen Davenport rushed to Melody Ashton's side, lifting the unconscious Melody Ashton down. Feeling the movement, Melody Ashton woke up. Seeing the worried Stephen Davenport in front of her, she quickly reassured him, it's okay, I'm safe now." The next second, a phone rang abruptly. Julian Kingsley paused for a moment before answering. "You're right," Stephen Davenport suddenly said to Melody, who was now safe in his arms. "I truly am lucky I didn't lose you." Melody Ashton looked at the man before her, so anxious for her. Melody Ashton hugged him back. "Stephen Davenport, let's leave this place. Let's find a place where no one can find us, okay? I don't want to lose you again." Melody Ashton looked at Stephen Davenport, who had been flustered since seeing her, his hands still trembling even after holding her in his arms. "Okay, let's leave this place. I don't want to have any more involvement with that person." Julian Kingsley, on his end, had intended to ask Stephen Davenport about his progress, but the call wouldn't go through. As he tried to dial again, he caught sight of someone crossing the road in front of him out of the corner of his eye. He swerved urgently, but his brakes suddenly failed, and his entire car crashed into a utility pole. When Julian Kingsley woke up again, the news he received was that Melody Ashton and Stephen Davenport had gone abroad to complete their unfinished honeymoon. Looking at photos of them, clearly in love, Julian Kingsley knew he had truly lost Melody Ashton. Melody Ashton would never come back to him,